Welcome to Articles of a Mentor. This is a podcast where I talk to my dad to learn from his wisdom. Every episode, we're going to go through one article that he's wrote over the years and discuss it in more detail. The article we have today is Chapter 2, My Biggest Challenge. As we have discussed before, I'm going to be reading today. Is that right?
Yes, it would be good if you could read today. I appreciate that, and we'll switch it up. Yeah, so you go ahead, and then we do the Q&A after.
Cool. My biggest challenge. In every photo shoot, my biggest challenge is to convince the model to open her soul to me. Asking her to reveal her inner spirit for a brief photo shoot is a tall order. I want my model to trust me, to find her confidence, and to relax, all within the first half hour of our session. Essentially, I'm asking that she open her heart to a stranger. Some models know exactly what I mean, others have no idea what I'm asking. From their vantage point, they say, "I'm here. What more do you want from me?" They don't see my dilemma. It's like trying to explain colors to a blind person. A model's physical presence fulfills the first requirement of a good photo shoot. The second checkbox is in my fulfilling responsibilities in staging, atmosphere, lighting, composition, creativity, etc. But the most critical component, which easily deserves 3 checkboxes, is a model's emotional investment in the experience. A good photographer needs to feel the model and react in sync to get the best out of her. An emotional connection requires empathy on both sides. When a photographer has empathy, they're able to connect with the model on a higher level. If I succeed in pulling the model's emotions into the camera, then I have a brief opportunity to capture it. I need to feel her emotions for that to work. Without empathy, this emotional layer can't be harnessed. Without empathy, this layer is invisible. Likewise, if the model doesn't have empathy, she'll lack the intuition to share in a genuinely spiritual connection. By staying within the confines of her protective walls, she'll rely solely on her physical presence, expecting that to be sufficient. I firmly believe that the best fine arts photographers in the world succeed in capturing the essence of their models through an authentic emotional connection. So today's topic is kind of similar to the first one. I'm getting some reoccurring themes here, some things that we already discussed a bit, but I think we will be able to discover some new aspects of it today when we start getting into the questions. Was there anything that you wanted to say to kind of introduce this article, some things that came to mind at first when I was just reading it?
I think it definitely is an extension of the first article, but this is really focusing on the challenges as in the title, and really to hone in on what I am trying to achieve and how to achieve those goals of capturing your soul. I would probably say that this was not clear in my very first photo shoots. This is what it has been, an evolution. It's kind of an hindsight situation to understand what I've been trying to do this whole time and the challenges that I've been facing, and through that conscious understanding of what I've been trying to achieve, I have understood that this biggest challenge is in the model herself, right? In the barriers that she has created through her youth and her whole life, and me trying to overcome those barriers in order to capture her soul.
So you're saying it took you a while before you realized that this was a big aspect of your photo shoots?
These first 2 articles I wrote probably after the first 40 photo shoots. So it was a hindsight scenario of understanding what I wanted to do. The gateway to the soul actually was from the very beginning, but the challenges part was much more nuanced later on, and evolved in my understanding of what I've been trying to achieve. And it kind of also honed in on what I've been trying to achieve the whole time. So as I was photographing these models, I started to understand what I wanted from them, what I wanted from myself, and what I wanted from my art, and how to achieve that. And the whole challenges aspect kind of came out of that whole realization of what I've been trying to do.
So I guess in the first in the first couple photo shoots, or in the first, maybe let's say, year of you photo shooting, it's really kind of you trying to learn about what you can do and how you can use your tools and really position yourself with the model in a way that makes sense and makes your artwork come to life. But then once you kind of start to master, in a sense, maybe that's the wrong word, but like start to learn a lot about yourself, you then start to expand your horizons into, okay, how can I now start working with the model herself to also give her some of the responsibility in what I'm trying to do here. It's not only me. Now let me try to focus more on what she's bringing to the table now that I've already mastered or felt more comfortable with what I'm doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that another way to explain it is that my first 5 models were fantastic. They gave themselves to me. Let's say they gave their soul to me.
Figuratively, right?
It wasn't until I got to a model that didn't do that that I realized that not everybody is doing this giving the soul aspect to my photography. So when it didn't happen the first time, I realized, oh, so this is not a foregone conclusion that she's going to give me their soul. Everybody's different, right? And over a period of all of my photo shoots, I would say that probably 80% give me their soul, but then there's the 20% that don't. And then that's 20%, it is glaringly obvious that I am not able to gain their trust. I'm not able to create that common ground and that rapport for them to bring their walls down enough to express themselves. So that was the contrast, because models are contrasting the photographers, right? You have good photographers, you have not so good photographers, and then the same applies with photographers. I have contrast with different types of models as they show up to the studio. So we both have this contrasting aspect to different types of people that they're dealing with. I think that I'm quite personable and that I'm easy to get along with. That's kind of maybe my personal perception, but I think over 160 photo shoots, I can say that, and from the feedback of the models, that I'm quite easy to talk to and get along with. So when it doesn't really happen, then it's just not a common ground success with that model to be able to create the photo shoot that I want to have, right? I remember asking a girl that I really need to capture your soul. I haven't actually heard a photographer ask that before. So then I started to realize that maybe I'm kind of unique in this approach. I know I didn't really think I was that unique, but then when she said that and she had a lot of experience, I realized maybe I am unique in that aspect.
Allowing for that atmosphere of vulnerability should be a given, but I guess it's not widespread enough as things stand right now, at least based on what you discuss with your models.
Yeah, I mean, definitely this is very different from fashion photography, this vulnerability aspect, because you are coming down to, let's say, figuratively and literally the bare essentials, and that requires incredible bravery and confidence and vulnerability, and not everybody is willing to give that, and if they are, then not to every photographer, and not on every given day. So let me just clarify one aspect. What I'm talking about when I'm photographing women, I sometimes interchange girls and women. My range in terms of photographing women is 18 to 32. Because I'm doing art nude, they're all adults, and in this industry, there is interchangeable use of the word girls and boys in terms of men and women. So that is kind of, it depends on the type of culture of how people use those terminologies. I use them interchangeably. I'm always referring to women when I'm talking about girls, so over 18. In terms of the type of models that are best for my art, they're usually comfortable with their bodies around 22 years old, maybe 23. And I've even gone above 32. I photographed one model who was 42, had 3 kids, a Dutch model. So just to clarify, girls means Over 18.
What is your modus operandi to make the models feel safe and at ease before you even go into the photography? Maybe even from the point of reaching out to these models, like you're giving them space for agency. Like, what is it exactly that you add?
Well, yeah, the whole rapport begins in the online communications and discussing the photo shoot. I've even had models say, yeah, I get a feel for the photographer based on how they talk to me in email or messenger, and vice versa. I also get the feel for the model in terms of how she communicates with me. And then you can get an idea of what sentimentality you're going to have when they show up. Especially if they come to my studio here, I go downstairs, open the door for them, and shake their hand and welcome them in. So I don't wait for them to come up unless they've already had a photo shoot with me. That's part of the process. And having a coffee with them and looking at the wardrobe that they have, and then creating that conversation throughout that process of who they are, where they're from, what experience they have in photo shooting, understanding a little bit about their background. I have a tendency to joke, so some models have a good sense of humor, so they like that. I'm always in a good mood with my photo shoots because I love photo shooting, so I think it comes out when I talk to them. And usually what happens is that within the next half hour, they're relaxed. And I feel it because I have empathy. I feel how she is doing in terms of comfort. I can see it in the lens of how her eyes are relaxing, and this blossoming aspect to her being able to relax and start to free flow. I can see it, and then I comment on it. I say, I feel that you're relaxing. So almost that's almost kind of a reassurance that from her perspective, she says, okay, I am relaxing, and he's actually saying that I'm relaxing. So there is this synergy now for me to even relax more. And then it gets better and better. In many photo shoots, the last half hour is the best because she's completely relaxed in many cases. So that progression over a 3-hour photo shoot is usually my time frame, 2-3 hours. That last half hour is the best photos.
But that whole journey is kind of necessary, right? It's a necessary obstacle to get over, and the build up to that last 30 minutes that actually will probably produce the most photos that you are including in the final cut.
So in many cases, I leave the best wardrobe for the last 30 minutes. I leave the best backdrops for the last 30 minutes. And if it's a golden hour shoot where we're shooting with a sunset, then that's the last 30 minutes is the best. And the nice thing is that when they come back for photo shoots, then we don't have to go through that whole process again. What maybe took 2 hours to relax the first photo shoot, they're relaxed in the first 30 minutes on the second photo shoot. I want to be friends with my model. I don't want this to be a business where you are paid for the photo shoot, you go, and then we never talk again.
Yeah, not just a transaction.
Yeah, just purely transactional, just business. Take my photo, give me my money so I can go home scenario. I really don't like those type of photo shoots. And like I said, luckily in very few cases, I'd say like 5% of the cases, it's like that. It just completely just transactional, but they do happen once in a while, and luckily they're rare.
But having said that, like all of the models know what they're going into before the photo shoot is starting, right? When you're in that phase of communication before the actual photo shoot and when you're planning it, you make the model aware of what the expectations are from the photo shoot, what genre of photo shoot it is. Like every model knows what this whole thing is about, right?
Okay, well, this is important to mention because I'm not just photographing a model off the street. I'm photographing professional models who have, in some cases, hundreds of photo shoots a year. Hundreds. Sometimes they'll come for a tour in Prague to do some photos here, and then they're touring across Europe, and they'll do 3-4 photo shoots in Prague, then they go to Berlin, they have a bunch of photo shoots, then they go to Dusseldorf, then they go to Amsterdam, then they go to Paris, Milan, so they're circling Europe for months for photo shoots, and and then again they could repeat the whole process when they go to the States or Canada. So these are seasoned models who know the craft, and they know the process of setting up expectations in advance of the photo shoot. Let's say in the last 100 photo shoots that I've had, then probably 95 of them were professional models. The whole thing about expectations is not really a tricky business, because these models are doing this every day.
Right. We're talking about the professional level here anyway.
The way you phrase the question, it sounds like, I'm taking somebody that's naive off the street, that's never done a photo shoot, and how are you holding her hand, figuratively speaking, to guide her through a photo shoot? This is not what's happening here. These are professional models, right? I'm a professional photographer. These are professional models, and we know what we're doing, right? I have a job to do. She has a job to do, and we know what job we need to do.
Someone might think, oh, okay, opening your soul to someone, even if figuratively speaking, as part of the photo shoot, on the first day that I'm meeting this photographer, that doesn't sound viable, because I'm just going to be with them for 3 hours. How can I open my soul to a stranger who I've known for 3 hours? Are you saying that it's completely different when it comes to photography, and it is completely viable to get to someone's soul if they've had the experience, for example?
It really comes down to the crux of this article, the core meaning of this article, in terms of difficulty of capturing somebody's soul. The whole nuance of capturing somebody's soul comes down to the virtual barriers that every single one of us have, that have been created from childhood. Some of us have childhood trauma that has created barriers, and these barriers are protecting our soul. When I am photographing a model, I can feel that barrier, or I feel that there is no barrier, right? And an actor, for example, is able to bypass those barriers through acting. So sometimes a model will pose for me as an actress, right? Even though her barriers are high, she forgoes those barriers for 3 hours because she's playing a character and she's performing for me, right? So this was an aspect that I was trying to understand from an aspect of insecurity with actors and actresses. So I was trying to rationalize, how can a model, let's say, who is very insecure, be so confident in front of the camera, or an actor in front of a film camera? And it lies in performance, right? And not everybody's actually doing a performance, but this is one way to overcome barriers. Everybody has different types of barriers. There could be a virtual wall that is thin, but still a wall. And then there are virtual walls that are really thick. And sometimes a model doesn't even know the wall is there. These walls are so thick and so high, and they've been existing so long in their life that they don't even know that they're there. Whether it's a photo shoot, or whether it's work environment, or just socializing, there's this thickness of this barrier that's protecting their soul. And nobody's challenging that thickness, because nobody's asking them to give their soul in any context. So when I'm asking, then all of a sudden there's this confrontation with this wall that's in front of her. It's an important discussion, because if you don't know there's a wall there, then you can't forego the wall for the performance, for the photo shoot. You first have to recognize your own barriers and your own insecurities and your own walls that have been created in order to protect yourself in the world. With trust, then the walls start to come down. With confidence, the walls start to come down. When a model is comfortable, then the walls start to come down. So trust, confidence, and comfort are my three main barriers to bring down those walls. And I don't need them to go to zero. I just need them to come down enough so that she can look over that wall and do a photo shoot with me, so that we can both have this transparency to her soul. And then when she goes back into the world, then the walls can come back up. This trust that I'm trying to create with them is real, and it's not easy, but I do get to that point at least 80% of the time. And because I'm working with professional models, many of them understand this nuance. Maybe they're not conscious of it, but they do understand that there's this nuance of these barriers that they need to forego for a photo shoot. And like I said from the beginning, sometimes they do it through a performance if that's the way they need to get through it.
So what I was envisioning there is, as you said, the high walls and the thick walls. But to me, since that wall is always there as an insecurity and caused by trauma or whatever it may have been, before and after the photo shoot, those walls will be there. But I feel like the way I see it is I see the wall, and then I see an entrance in the wall, kind of like a cutout. And the goal of the photo shoot and being able to get to the person's soul, the model's soul, is for you and the model to meet in that portal. But the wall is still there. You guys have just been walking along the walls on either side until you meet in that portal, and then you see each other there. And then that would kind of be more applicable to also the model's personal life, is that they are always meeting their significant others and their friends in that portal, but the wall is still there. And then it's a whole separate issue of knocking down those walls and getting through trauma. Someone's not going to knock down those walls in a photo shoot, but they will be able to be vulnerable through that portal, right? That's the way that I was imagining this whole scenario.
Certainly this is quite abstract for many people to understand the core essence of a human being. I call this the concentric circles of being. So we have different circles, we have different walls. The way I see humans is there's not a single wall. There's an outer wall, kind of like a castle, right? Then there's a closer wall, and every wall is stronger until you get to the core, which is really the closest wall to you. And there's nothing else other than your soul behind that wall. So sometimes an individual can't even look inside their own closest concentric circle. But the thickness and the height of these walls really does come down to the childhood of the models. I've heard so many stories from models over the years, the parents that they had and the upbringing they had, and the stories that I heard, some of them are really unbelievable. And the openness that they've had with me about their stories, I would never repeat them, but it's jaw-dropping to listen to their stories of what they went through. I don't have childhood trauma. I've had trauma in my life, but it didn't translate into childhood trauma. And so I don't have childhood trauma, but I've seen that trauma in a lot of the models that I've talked to, and had really heartfelt conversations with them through a 3-hour photo shoot.
Those are also ones where you managed to get the soul, even despite that really deep-seated, brutal childhood trauma?
I'm getting to their soul because they're telling me this story.
So also talking about it is also kind of a gateway here.
The fact that they trust me enough to tell me that story of their childhood is that we're together overcoming those barriers. When I get to that level of discussion with them, I really feel that they've trusted me to be able to talk about that. And we got to that level where we've created a friendship to be able to capture her essence through that honesty that we've created. Another thing that's worth mentioning is that I think a lot of photographers would never talk about this. I think that if we don't talk about these challenges, then I can't get to the goals of the photo shoot. It's really important that we understand who we are as people, to understand how the world sees us and how we see the world. And the more I understand my models and what makes them tick, so to speak, what makes them motivated, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, how they feel at any given second and minute of the photo shoot, the more I understand that, the more I can get the best out of her. I would challenge any interview with a photographer to ask if they've ever discussed childhood trauma in the context of a photo shoot.
Whenever you're talking to anyone or even forming a deeper bond with someone, in your case it's a fleeting moment deep bond, but it still has the aspects and characteristics of a bond that's grown over years. To trust someone, you need to be capable of sharing with them not only your best moments, but also your worst moments. I guess when both sides know what both sides have been through and what both sides have had to fight through, you unlock this whole other world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down to self-awareness. Like I have a lifelong journey of understanding who I am. I have this, one of my personality traits, it's called INTJ. It's part of a Myers-Briggs test, personality test. Many people know about it. And an INTJ sees the world as a fly on the wall, right? And I identified this back when I was about 16, realizing that I want to see myself as other people see me. The way I look at it is like an addiction, right? In order to overcome an addiction, you need to recognize you have an addiction, right? Let's say you're an alcoholic. The first step that alcoholics say to recovery is to admit that you're an alcoholic. So this is the same aspect to photography. I want to be able to know who the model is, and I want the model to know who she is as well, through these virtual walls that she's created around her. Because when she starts to see that wall, then she can forego the wall, not only for the photo shoot, but for her life. But she first needs to recognize that there is a wall there, right? Just like an alcoholic needs to recognize that they're an alcoholic. So the negativity, let's say, of recognizing the wall or childhood trauma or alcoholism is a necessary step to the positivity of becoming a better person.
Right. And what you're saying here is the essence of a person is constantly evolving, and people learn, and maybe even after they have a photo shoot with you, some of these models, you have transformed their every future photo shoot from that point onwards, just because they learned maybe something about themselves or about the whole interaction of a photographer and a model in a photo shoot. Like after every photo shoot, a model is walking out of it slightly different, and what you bring to the table is kind of a realization of what the actual relationship there is, what it can be. And a model that goes in to even see you one day is not the same model that's coming to see you another day. It's not even that this whole giving your soul to someone is a static entity. It's something that changes over time with the person, their self-reflection, their personality, their experiences, and so on.
You're absolutely correct. And I started to realize that my approach to photo shooting is different than other photographers, because many models have said to me, you talk really different than other people.
Right.
You know, we're all kind of in our own head. I'm in my own head in terms of how I think about the world, but a lot of that is subjective to how I see the world. So it may not even be true. But when somebody else says you talk differently than other people, and you're a very different photographer than other photographers, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and nobody has asked me that before, and nobody has talked about the soul before.
In a positive sense, right?
Yeah, and then I realized that I do have a unique perspective on things, and if this helps them in their life, that's fine. I don't really expect over a 3-hour period that's going to happen, but I do consider myself a teacher at heart. I'm not, let's say, a teacher by schooling, but I believe I'm a teacher and a mentor in my soul. And as a teacher, I'm also a student, so I'm also learning from them. I'm learning from the students, because there's this feedback loop in realizing the younger generation have a different perspective. I had two models here about 3 weeks ago. One was 23 and 29. They're both influencers on the internet. I couldn't believe how much I learned from both of them. We were hanging out for 5 days. We did 22,000 photos over about 6 different locations across Prague, and we hung out for the whole 5 days. I didn't expect them to want to hang out. I thought they would just want to check out Prague by themselves, but we were hanging out the whole time, every day, until 3 in the morning, and then repeat, and just talking. And I couldn't believe how much I could learn from both of them in terms of their life experiences, in terms of how they do their social media, but even beyond that, just understanding how they do things. So a teacher is always a student.
Really sounds like your photo shoots are really much more than just that. Your photo shoot is a whole thing in itself, almost like a separate genre. I can see how you're standing out from other photographers, and I'm not surprised based on what you're saying that these models are telling you that you have a very different approach, one that they maybe feel even more comfortable in. It's kind of an event. It's not a photo shoot. It's an event where there's a lot of talking going on. There's a lot of respect, mutually speaking, and there's a lot of vulnerability that comes from that on both sides, and that just allows then the artwork that will be created to reach a whole other level.
You're absolutely right. Photo shoots are not just an isolated transactional event. A lot of these photo shoots are transformative in terms of really soulful expression on both sides, and I find it really fulfilling to create in this genre. It's absolutely fantastic.
In your case, a photo shoot is two artists coming together to create art.
Two artists coming together to create magic.
To create magic, there you go.
For me, it's magic. They will use the word, let's create magic together. And it is true, that is this nuance to what I call the in-between moments, which will be a separate session, where her soul is revealed. And it's not the pose, it's this in-between moment. And that is just a fantastic moment to capture. So I'm chasing those in-between moments in every photo shoot. That's why I'll do 2,000 photos in an hour, to get those fraction of a second, split second in-between moments.
It sounds like there was a lot that also didn't make the cut in this article just because of how many different angles there are in a photo shoot, how many different elements there are in this artwork creation event. So yeah, is there anything that you'd like to add here?
I think we covered it quite well, and in many different aspects, and we covered a lot of other aspects as well. I think it was a good session. Thank you.
All right, so that's it for this one. We'll continue in the next episode.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.